opening and you miss it. Not my law, incidentally. It's kind of a universal
it's the
law.
law of the universe, and my wife. I want to say this, yeah, because I'll tell you something. I wrote this down, and you just met my wife for the first time. So even though I know you a long time, you only met my wife for the first time. But she says your words. So I'm quoting you both because they're identical, okay? Just because it hasn't happened the way you'd like it doesn't mean that it won't, and it doesn't mean you should give up. So that's what keeps me going all the time, and that's what you say has to keep us all going all the time. Just because something hasn't happened, what possible law of physics says it won't?
It's true, and maybe it never will, but maybe something better will happen. Again, if you think about the vision, it can be played out in a lot of different ways. You don't have to be a best-selling author to realize certain things. You can't put those obstacles in the way.
You need all sorts of things coming out of you to some extent for these things to happen. We sometimes get stuck. Well, I should do that or I shouldn't do that. And really there's probably, and at the same time, I know you're careful, you want to avoid what the term is, the paralysis of analysis. You don't want to overthink a situation where you are stuck, but you don't want to just give it one or two thoughts. It may require mega ways of thinking.
If you could think of another way to find out what you need to find out and maybe change your thought patterns, or just let it sit for a while sometimes, that'll help too.
You know, you said that if I give out your website, you will respond to
yes,
people.
Absolutely.
And it'll, let me do that right now. It's www.bookofzen, that's BOOKOFSZEN.com. And I'm going to, right after those words, I put this, I'm going to show you my Spanish. La vida es corta para anca. Life is short, according to you, but wide. That's how you start that chapter. Life is short, but wide. A Spanish saying.
It is, and it's a great expression. And I when I first saw that, I couldn't think of any better way to kind of describe the opportunities that all of us have in life and the possibilities. And that philosophically in that Spanish saying is that they adhere to that. And when you start to see the bandwidth of what's out there in a wide universe, you're not so likely to run into a brick wall. You're going to be able to go around it or over it.
Well, you say, in fact, pay attention to that bandwidth. Well, you know what? The wider that room, that bandwidth is, the more, quote, on the dial reception you may pick up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you keep it open and actually move the antenna from time to time, and even behind you, you never know who you've passed that has a message for you as well.
Wow, we got to go into that a little bit more. Because that's really important, isn't it? You don't know how many people from behind you there, you may already have the thing that you're looking for, or at least guide you to that next thing. So you're right, we can't only just look this way, we have to look back. I never thought of it that way before.
Yeah, you know, because at the time maybe you weren't open to it, and they were holding it out there saying, I'm here for you.
You have a thing called acceptance and detachment. And I'll read it. Acceptance is an appreciation for what is. Detachment is the ability to separate oneself from the trials and tribulations and angst of life because you simply can't control it all anyway. So that's kind of an interesting play on words, acceptance and detachment. Detachment always seems to have like a negative connotation to it. You give it a kind of nice positive spin there.
Well, I think, you know, and that goes back to what we talked about the vision. You can be detached if you know where you're going. It's when you don't know and you're focused on how I'm going to do it that you get stuck. And you can only be detached too if you have the confidence that you're going in the right direction. And attention, of course, is necessary because if you don't do anything, nothing's going to happen. So you have to pay attention to some things.
Now, one of the things that moved me was you said that greatness has a twin brother known as gratefulness. And oftentimes, we don't really appreciate that as much as we should.
I think I'm guilty of not being as grateful for lots of things. And I often, and I think it's in the book too, that I have to remind myself that there are lots of people that have touched my life that I've been blessed by. All the readers of this thing, incidentally, have always sent great comments and support. And I want to recognize that, and I just don't want to do it one time and say I'm done being grateful for it. Because if you keep building on this gratitude, you'll be able to be detached from anything, because you'll be full of what you need to be when you grow up.
You give us something else called weight problem, W-A-I-T. And as Tom Petty so eloquently says, the waiting is the hardest part. Yeah. But you say it's three things. Wait for something to happen is one way of waiting. Wait for something you really want to happen, or waiting for permission to stop waiting.
Yeah, I think waiting is, for me anyway, it centers around, I want to be discovered. I expect someone to call me up and say, everything you wanted that was on order, you're going to get. But oftentimes that just doesn't happen. Yet you think, and I can tell you, I had a client situation. I chased a piece of business with another company for a long time. It was a big deal, and it just never came to fruition. I couldn't accept that for a long time. I kept on thinking, they're going to call me any second. But at some point, a friend of mine just said, let it go. And it's okay to not wait anymore. And you know what? As soon as you stop waiting, you're free.
Well, you know what? You say it here. Knowing where you want to go, but not knowing exactly how to get there serves to either get you lost or maybe discover something new along the way. So that's that sense of where you also use turning doubt into positive energy. Isn't that it? That's the doubt that you turn into positive energy.
Yeah, and positive, I think, is really the key, because if you look at something that has got to be a good conclusion in here somewhere, I think you'll find the good conclusion, or you'll find a good direction. If you think it's going to be bad, sure enough, it's going to be bad. And I know one of the authors that we both love, John O'Donohue, talks about in his book, Beauty, is that if you think people are out to get you, they'll be lining up. And I always remember that from the show here and from reading his book, that it's true too. If you think something good's going to happen, good things can happen, and they will.
Well, one good thing that happened, you came up with this book, Gary, and visited me on the show. I want to end with your words. Understanding who we really are is the most powerful asset we possess. Once armed with our inner truth, we can conquer self-doubt. Thank you, Gary, for arming us today.
Thank you, Barry. I really enjoyed it.
It's my pleasure, and thank you guys for joining us. Now, before Gary leaves, I'd like to leave you with these few more words from the Book of Szen. There is more to do and achieve and enjoy than we can see before us. There is a corner to turn and a bridge to cross, a bridge filled with doubt and angst, but one that we can overcome. I'm Barry Kibrick. Turn the corner and cross the bridge, for between the doubt and the angst, you will see what you need to overcome. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, want a DVD or transcript of our show, catch an episode online, or receive our weekly updates, go to www.klcs.org/BTL.
Closed captioning for Between the Lines with Barry Kibrick is made possible by Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles, ranked 4th best regional university in the West by U.S. News and World Report.
That's where a lot of individuals and organizations fall short. They can't see where they want to go, or they limit themselves to what they think they have to do. And that's why it's a why not.
On this episode of Between the Lines, inspiration for a changing world with Gary Szenderski. With his latest work, Book of Szen, Gary celebrates the potential within all of us to live a life of fulfillment.